Morning.
Good morning, and thank you very much for joining us for TFT 12. You're the second of our EMEA speakers today, so I'd like to kind of welcome you on board this amazingly fantastic, groundbreaking event. I'm delighted that you're able to kind of share this journey with us. It's fantastic. And
Okay,
I'm quite
thank
lucky
you.
because I've had the opportunity to kind of meet you at events before and had an opportunity to chat, but there will be a few people that probably haven't had an opportunity to meet you face to face. They probably follow you on Twitter. They're probably very aware of the work that you've been doing with James Finister. So I think probably before we kind of hand over to you entirely for your presentation, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself, Aale, and about the organisation and what you do? I think, from memory, were you ITSM Person of the Year for Finland in 2012? Was that correct?
Yes, I was. Quite nice surprise.
And how did you come about that title?
I don't know. I've been vocal here in Finland about these ITSM issues for a long time, and so they just decided to do it. I didn't apply for it.
Okay, so yeah, as I say, perhaps if you can share a little bit about yourself for the audience, and then we'll hand over to you to get kicked off onto your presentation.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I have been in ITSM a long time. I was actually set up my first help desk in 1980s, and then I worked with people like Ron Munson, Howard Kendall in the 90s, setting up help desks and so on. And today I do consulting, some training. I have my own one-man company, so I'm sitting in my home office here in Helsinki, Finland. By the way, it's a very cold morning here in Helsinki. It's minus 19 centigrade.
Minus 90. I thought when I got up in the UK this morning it was minus 2, and I thought that was pretty chilly.
Yeah. Yeah, we got winter here in Finland with a bang, kind of, because it was last week. It just started like real winter, lots of snow and so on. And before that, it was more like looked like as in UK.
Okay.
So my phone is making some noises.
It's all right. We're live. It's great. These things happen.
Yeah, yeah. I think our cat was hungry. He was he was here pushing around. So I think he went off now. But okay, should I start?
Yeah, I mean, if that's enough of a background about you, then I'm more than happy for you to kind of kick off to your presentation. I will disappear, but I'll still be listening to you. I'll be collecting questions for you that come through on Twitter, and if anybody would like to ask questions, if they can use the hashtag TFT12 and also hashtag QFS, and that enables us to distinguish the questions from the main tweeting that's going on. So I will hand over to you, Aale, and I'll be back with you very shortly.
Okay, let's see how this works. I will share my screen now. Let me see now. Let's try.
Perfect.
So, can you see now people?
I can see people. That's absolutely brilliant. I will leave you to it and come back at the end for you for questions.
Okay, okay. So this was my presentation slide. Nothing so special there, and these were the slides I went over, and now I'm in the business slide. Okay, thanks, Emma. Yeah, and one of the kind of difficult things really is that you in many cases people offer free services to get customers to come in, and even the free service requires support because otherwise your customers won't convert into paying customers. And the tools. Of course, this tool thing can look kind of as Rob England talks about glittery toys or kind of superficial, but I think there's more to it. It's the the new tools are much more easier to use, and they really need much less support. And that's simply because they are meant for the consumer. And you know, consumer stuff is sold at markets or malls and or web more and more. And the point is that a custom consumer tool can't require as much support as kind of professional business tools. And then we have this consumer rights. It can be very expensive for a company if some consumer product has some kind of general problem. They will become very expensive. So and really the need for support is much less. I used to be a desk side support person here at home because my wife was using an laptop. It was a good professional level laptop from which one of our consultants in my previous company had used, but when he left the company, it became available, so I bought it for her, and I had to help. She had some difficulties with it quite often. She didn't use it so much. She did electronic banking mainly, and there was always some update going on. So then I bought an iPad. Actually, I thought I bought the iPad for me, but she took it quickly over, and my career as the desk side local support person was really over. She just didn't have any difficulties, not that type. If she has some questions, they are mainly about how to use Facebook or something like that, and the questions are much more difficult. Actually, in the beginning, I was not even able to answer because she was using Facebook more than me. Okay, so these things are changing, and we can look at an analogy with cars, because in earlier times, cars were somewhat unreliable but fairly easy to fix. So every service station, every gas or petrol station had this garage there, and a car mechanic who could, you know, solve if there was something wrong with the car, some red light came up, or there was some noise, or so on. So they were to help you. And if you look at the computers, we can see this analogy. We had these beige boxes, the PCs. They were quite unreliable, but they were easy to fix. So we had the help desk and the desk side support, and they really could solve the problems people were having. But what has happened with the cars is that cars have become much more complicated. It's not possible actually to fix them, to do anything in that old style garage with a new car, which are, by the way, full of computers. So you need to have special tools and special software to do anything. And so exactly the same thing is happening with the IT technology. So we really think that the main point here is that the service desk is moving from the old fixing broken parts to something new, which offers new capabilities, new opportunities. So I think the Apple Store. By the way, I use PC. I'm not really an Apple fan. The iPad is my only Apple tool, but still, I think it's a good analogy for this change. And if you look at the pictures, you can see that it's kind of major change. So and it's happening all the time. When people have problem with the technology, they search first. They use Google. They ask colleagues. So that means that there will be less of these simple cases where you know there's just a cable um, have come loose, or you know the screen is not on and so on. So people have checked a lot of possible causes already, and what they are expecting from the service desk is to get expert service. And if they have a few experiences where they feel that okay, the service desk doesn't know anything, that's the end. They won't call the service desk anymore. I have done measurements here in Finland, actual studies with help desks or service desks, where the service desk people have sent a questionnaire to all their customers, asking did they have some kind of IT problem during this week. We send it on Fridays, so we ask, was it this week, so that people still remember what happened, and we ask what they did, and we can see that people try to solve it first themselves, then they ask colleagues, and then as kind of last resort, then they called the service desk. But the percentage of all attempts to solve a problem, the percentage of the service desk calls is something like 15 to 20%. So it's really, people are relying on themselves. So the Service Desk 2.0 is an attempt to look beyond what ITIL is saying. It's I think the ITIL Service Desk is obsolete. It's old-fashioned HDI, SDI. I think they had already 10 years ago better models for the service desk. And there's a link to the document, and this is not a product. This is not a commercial thing. This is really just something which I've been doing from the interest of this thing. I'm not selling here. It's not a book. I did some interviews and found some interesting facts, and this is very much work in progress. So I think I've been talking with customers. I do some training workshops for service desk people, and I've been explaining these ideas and been getting feedback, and I hope I will be probably updating the document soon. But let's see how this works. I think we need three things to get the new service desk working. It must understand the goal in a new way. It needs new practices, and it needs social media. And if we look at the goal of the support, we have to think about providing value, and the value doesn't come from just solving incidents. Real value, of course, it has value if customer can't use the tool, and then it means the customer is losing value. And if we can stop the customer from losing value, it's good, but it's not actually generating value. But if we can help customers to use the services so that they can do their job better, that they can find new good ways of doing things, then we are creating value. And I think there is a lot of opportunity to that. I had an interesting experience. I wrote it on the Facebook pages of this conference, but I was in a kind of event, and there was some people speaking, and we were waiting for the dinner, and I checked my email as people do while somebody is speaking, and so I had this email from Emma that about my presentation not being there and my video not being there, and I answered that yes, I have sent them, and she said but no, but they are not here. And then I thought, what can I do? I just had my phone and not much of battery life there, and so I wasn't at the office, and these are large files. And then I realized that hey, all this stuff is on my Dropbox, and it's possible to share files with somebody. So what I did, I just shared these two files, and that was it. In 5 minutes, I got the confirmation that she had got the files. So I think that was actually kind of amazing new thing. I hadn't realized that I could do things like that. It was the first time I actually solved a problem. So with that tool, I have used it in a slightly different way for sharing stuff, but I hadn't realized that it could be so easy. So I think this just one example, but there are so many opportunities to do things, and I think this conference was probably for many of the speakers the first time they used Google Hangouts, which is quite useful little service. So these are examples what you can do in support by showing people new ways. And then I said that we need new practices, and I find this Synefin framework a few months ago. Actually, it's much older stuff, but I hadn't followed it. But it has an interesting classification of situations and problems, where you can classify them in 4 groups. And one thing, the easy thing, the simple, is a situation where we know what happens when we do. You know the cause and the reaction. So you just need to listen to the customer, and then you can categorize the problem and respond, and this means you can have best practice. But life is not always so simple. So in many cases the problems are complicated, and it's not so easy to immediately to see what to do. You need to analyze. I will be talking a little about this standard and case, which I think Rob England has a good name for it. So, which is kind of case-based solving style, and I think that's something where a lot of service desk work is and actually should be, and then you don't have actually best practices anymore. And then we move on to more complex situations where it's not so easy to find structure, and we can talk about emergent practices. And I think, for instance, social media is something like that. We have Chris Dancy is writing his edicts, which I think are maybe at some level emergent practices. Maybe some of them are good practices. And then the last one is the chaotic situation. We really don't know what happens, and I think in some areas and in some cases, we are there too. Things are happening too fast. Everything is new, and we don't know how things work at all. I think, at least for many people, I would guess the first experiences with something like Twitter is chaotic, or even Facebook. It takes a little time to start seeing how things work, and then in the middle of this, there's disorder, and the catastrophic situation is if you just drop from simple to chaotic, thinking that you still have the rules. And one of the problems really with the best practice idea is that we think that life is simple and we can use processes for everything, while we are in truth we are in complicated or complex situations, and sometimes even in chaotic. Okay, so as you can hear, I'm really not a fan of best practices. I think they have limited use, and I think ITIL has just become more and more, let's say, misguided with the addition of event management and service request separated from incident, with very, very unclear definitions. Like this is actually from James Finister, this example, where he said that when he has a catastrophe with a failed disk, it's just a service request for the vendor. So I mean, a customer can really experience a catastrophe with losing data, and it becomes, well, just one incident for the service desk. The service provider might see just an event. They might have noticed that, okay, there was a failed disk, and they send a service request to the infra vendor, who has their rules how they handle standard service requests. So it's not at all clear. There is no common terminology, and for instance, if we talk about incident, ITIL has 3 different definitions for the incident. So when people are talking about incidents, you never know what they mean. So I think the service desk needs to understand, for instance, this simple thing, that we have something called fault management. When something breaks and we fix it, and then we get service back. This is not the same thing as customer service. Customer has a problem, and you take care of the customer and hope to get a satisfied customer at the end result. And these things may be connected, but they are separate change of events, because let's say the disk fails and you fix the disk, but what about the customer? For sometimes you can have a workaround for the customer, and customer doesn't have to wait for the fix, but it can also work differently. It could be that the customer lost some data, and you need to help the customer to get back the data. So the customer's problem is not solved by restoring the service. So there are 2 different things, and somehow ITIL missed this point, because customer problem is not the same as service request, because you need to solve. It can be a difficult problem, and so it's. I've been talking about orders. I think that should be that your customers have problems, or then customers have orders, and then you have technical or actual failures, faults in the service. So, and yes, I mentioned this standard case. So this is actually a short presentation. It's I don't go so much into the detail of these methods. I just want to show some of the areas where you need to move beyond what ITIL is saying. So this adaptive case management is a great idea, and a case, it could be in the ITIL terminology, it could be a difficult incident, it could be a problem, but the point is that you open a case and you need to start working on it, and you get information from many sources, you have discussions, you might get some email, you need to talk with some experts, vendors and so on, and you collect information. You may have some processes there, you have rules, but all cases are a little different, and this is not a process. It may have some processes there, but it's not a clear chain of steps, pre-ordered chain of steps like a process. This is an information centric, and you need an knowledge worker working on these cases. So many areas like medicine, legal, sales, and so on use this case approach, but I think it's definitely part of also IT service management, and so you need to understand that it's not all, you can't do everything by a process. And this is one thing I've been explaining this to people, and I think it has been a kind of it has hit the spot. People say, yes, this is exactly how we work. It's we solve everything outside the process, really. So it's kind of interesting. We have these process tools which should help us in the service desk, but then in real life people don't use them. They solve things outside the process. It goes for also for changes. Any complex change is a case. You have standard changes and complex changes. And one thing where we need new procedures, how to work things, is handling all these channels. When the help desk thing was started, it was really the phone that was the most important channel, but I think it started changing already 10, 12, 15 years ago. The email was becoming more and more important channel, but today we have a lot of ways of communicating. We still have the old direct contact ways where you call the service desk, or some people have actual desks or places where a customer can visit, and then we have all these kind of random meetings in the corridors, and we have these private messages like email, or we can have a form, or we can use chat, and then the quite important new open message channel, which is kind of the social media thing. It can be an internal forum, open forum. We can use all kinds of tools there. And so this becomes more complex for the service desk because you have to work all these channels. And we have to understand that people have a lot of sources for support. We have this, of course, the service desk, and then everybody should have some kind of self-service. And in many companies there are business support, because business has become complicated. The business systems need people who can help the customers, the end users, how to do things there. Things that are not really an IT problem, but the line is not so clear. But then we have a lot of unofficial routes. As I said, people try Google, they ask colleagues, but they know that there are, for instance, there are specialist teams who are working with the application, They are specialists in infra structure management. They are like central network controllers and so on. And there are external infra support in many cases. So they can contact many places. Service desk is just one player there. And I found this name, community at support. I understand it's for, at least for UK people, it has some other meanings, but I found it actually from the Angry Birds game. I was playing this Star Wars, and in some earlier Angry Bird games, you could get actually a golden egg by watching the credits. So I wanted to check if it works here too, and watch the credits. But they have done this. Rovio and Lucasfilm have worked this together, and it has a huge long credit list. There are so many people. It's done in the film industry, Hollywood way, and I didn't get any bonus, so don't watch them. But or I did get some bonus because I saw there was this team, community at support, and I think it fits quite well here, that you understand that your support team must try to work with the whole community of support. So it's not single point of contact. There are many points of contact, and you can work directly, hopefully, with the self-service and your own infra support people with your tools and so on. But then there are many of these groups are such that you can only try to influence them, but you can't directly control them. So the dotted lines are where you have weaker control or no control, just try to have some influence there. So you have to play the field, and you are not the center field, really. Customer is the center. So what the Service Desk 2.0 must work, it's social media management. There are discussions, and you should moderate the social media. You have to manage the self-service, FAQs, knowledge bases, and so on. And then, of course, handle the normal standard service desk work, working on the contacts from the customers and handling the standard tickets with your processes, but also solve the cases. So what you need to do, you need to make the social media work for you. So we have some Angry Birds here helping you, and you should really start from the point that self-service and peer support are default. They are happening. I mean, you can say that it's you don't think that it's a good idea, but the point is that people, the customers, are using these channels. So instead of denial, you should help this. You should improve this, and you should have good tools for it. And I mean, I really don't know if there are so good tools. A couple of the companies I interviewed for the Service Desk 2.0 document, they were using their own tools. Like, yeah, I will tell about one of the cases here. Here are two cases. The first one, this was on blog posting I happened to see, where Cisco Finland told about their bring your own device problem. The situation was that people wanted to use their own, mainly I think Apple laptops at work, and IT was against it. But finally the IT gave up. But they said that okay, you can bring them here, but we won't support them. So they set an internal support forum, and the end result was minus 25% of support costs, So support cost went down with 25%, and customer satisfaction went up 100%. I don't know how they measured that, but whatever. The CIO considered this as a quite a success story, which we can understand. And the other one, which I was mentioning or nearly mentioned, was this Automatic, who runs WordPress. They have interesting figures. They have 20 million customers. They get 50,000 contacts per month, and they have 10 persons working in first level support, who they called happiness engineers. So these numbers are pretty amazing. I would say that from my experience with the help desks, if you have 3,000 customers and maybe get 4,000 calls to support per month, you need 10 person to handle that. So they have found something which is rather amazing, and one thing which they are using WordPress as their support tool, and they are using social media a lot. Okay, well, final slide. Is this easy? Definitely not. But think about, if you can get the social media working for you, you have more people in the support, you have more knowledge, and if you are solving problems openly in social media, the solutions are visible and reusable. Remember that people search first. So the point is really, you get better service at lower cost, and that is a good combination. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Aale. I'm back with you now.
Okay, thank you.
I thoroughly enjoyed that presentation. Thank you very much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom with us, despite your cat's best attempts to sabotage your headphones, I think, at the beginning.
Yeah, that was really, it got stuck below his, chin on his throat, and he was really pulling it away from my ears. He hasn't done that. I don't think he has ever done that before.
Oh, well, it's always the first time, particularly as we're live on air. If they're going to do it any time, it's going to be then.
Yeah.
I just have a couple of questions for you, Aale, if that's okay. Right at the beginning of your presentation, you talked about the survey that you'd done with the service desks, and how it's something like, I think 15 or 20% of the people surveyed said that kind of the service desk was their last port of call for fixing any of their problems. I wonder if you kind of have any kind of top tips to help organisations make the service desk the first point of call, based around the kind of whole social media element of the last point of your presentation.
Well, actually, the 15% number comes when you calculate all the attempts to solve a problem.
Yeah.
And the contacting service desk is 15% of all those attempts. But the survey showed that people attempt, they use many methods to solve one problem. So when a person has a problem, they first spend some time trying to work it out themselves. If that doesn't work, then they ask their colleague, and they work together on it. And if that doesn't work, then they will call the service desk. And so I think it's a combination of marketing and really then helping people to solve problem themselves.
Right.
So self-service and some kind of forum for support things, and of course marketing of the service desk. But I think it's really important how people, the ability to solve problems is really important. So if people feel that the service desk can't solve their problems, then they will try other ways. They will not even try to call.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to something that you said, at the very beginning of your presentation around, the service desk you should be focusing on adding value and offering kind of new capabilities to the
Yeah.
organisation, and not just, you know, focus, as we know, on kind of break fix. And that's obviously fundamentally down to kind of the culture of the organisation, and that's what organisations, you know, find the biggest challenge. Is there, you know, in your experience and with those case studies that you work with, was there anything there that you could kind of share with the audience that would help that move from kind of break fix to, you know, added value and capabilities?
Yeah, it's. I think one thing which is quite important is of course that it's the old stuff. You need to have motivated people.
Yeah.
You need to trust your people. You need to have people see the work in service desk as important. I mean, if your service desk is a place where people just move through quickly, then nothing of that happens. So it's really, I think it's one of the key things is that the whole IT should see that the service desk is important, and you need to have good people there.
Yeah, that's interesting, because, you know, that certainly the people element was, you know, a very strong theme from all of our, you know, Oceania speakers last night, this morning, or whenever, you know, that happened to be, you know, there's very, very much a theme about the people, the engagement and the culture, and that was mentioned quite a lot this morning. So
Yeah.
It's been marvellous experience listening to you this morning, and letting you share your experiences with our audience. I'm sure they've had an amazing time. I'd just like to say again, thank you very much for spending the early part of your morning with us. Now will be some time for you to get some breakfast.
No, I had my breakfast already. I woke up early.
I'd also just like to take this opportunity to thank BMC, our sponsors, for TFT12. You know, they've done an amazing job in enabling us to make this happen. So very much our thanks go out to them. Our thanks go out to you again, Aale, just for joining us on this wonderful history-making journey. And I think it's probably goodbye from me now, and we will look forward to seeing you again soon at some point.
Okay, thank you, Tessa.
Thanks, Aale. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.